Okay, I wanted to welcome everyone who is here tonight to our regular monthly meeting. This is Wednesday, April 17. I know we have some members missing, but we have a quorum, so we will continue. Okay. So at this time, I'm gonna call on, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna use Lieutenant Scott because I don't want to pronounce your name funny, to call the roll.
That is perfectly okay. Thank you, Vice Chair. I will call the roll. Member
Present.
Member Davidi,
Present.
Member Ruiz,
Present.
Vice Chair Tokolahi.
Present.
It looks like Member Nguyen is coming up right now. Just in time. I'm right in the middle of calling roll. All you have to say is you're here. Perfect. Thank you. And then before we continue, Member Ruiz, would you like a Spanish translation headset? Okay.
We good? Then we're gonna move on. I believe Lieutenant Scott is gonna address the interpretation. In the public comment for the meeting tonight.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Before we begin, we would like to announce that tonight's meeting will include Spanish language simultaneous and consecutive interpretation provided by qualified interpreters on the Spanish channel. If watching on Zoom, you can join the Spanish channel by clicking on the interpretation icon in the Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. If you are attending in person and don't have access to the Zoom meeting from your mobile device, please come see me and I will get you set up with a device so that you can listen to the meeting in Spanish. As a reminder, we ask that everyone participating tonight, please speak slowly to allow our interpreter to effectively express your comments.
Antes de empezar, nos gustaría anunciar que la junta de hoy tendrá una interpretación consecutiva y simultánea por intérpretes calificados en el canal de español. Si usted está viendo en Zoom, puede accesar al canal haciendo clic en el icono de interpretación de Zoom que está en la barra de herramientas que parece un globo terráqueo. Si usted está atendiendo en persona y no tiene acceso a Zoom o a la junta de Zoom desde su teléfono, por favor venga a verme y le ayude a configurar su teléfono para que pueda accesar o pueda escuchar la junta en inglés. Como un recordatorio, les pedimos a todos los que participen hoy que hablen lentamente para que su intérprete pueda expresar correctamente sus comentarios. Gracias.
This meeting tonight is being recorded and members of the public can watch online or listen by phone by calling 669-444-9171 using the meeting ID 898-526-4-7245#. There'll be an opportunity for public comment for those participating in person. Each person will have 2 minutes to provide their comments, and we invite each of you to introduce yourselves by name before presenting your comments. We are offering closed captioning for this evening's meeting on Zoom. Please select the live transcript button on Zoom to enable this feature.
Thank you. Does everyone have an agenda in front of you guys? Because I think that's our next item on our agenda tonight is to approve the minute from the last one.
I have a motion to approve, but with an amendment to my comments. I would like on the condition to change the wording graph to anywhere in the document that says studies or surveys. I was hoping that there would be citations in reference to that. Correct, yeah.
In the last minutes, yes. Okay,
And member, your comment is noted. Thank you for making the motion, but just to remind Vice Chair Tokolahi, we do have to invite the committee to ask any questions first, if they have about the minutes, and then we open it up to any public comment that anybody's here.
okay.
In our
The-
packet, is there a copy of the minutes in this packet?
Don't forget to talk into the mic. And yes, your question was is there a copy of the minutes in the packet? Yes.
You got it?
I got it now, I passed over it. Now,
Okay, do we're gonna just move on to that, questions from any committee members who have
Yes.
questions about the minutes? Member Salomon, do you have a questions?
no, I just want clarification of Danny's,
The motion,
his motion. I just need clarification of Danny's motion. Was it about the minutes?
It's within my comments of what I said. It was just misquoted and I'm just asking for clarification and correction.
while Salama is going through
It's, what do you,
You got
okay,
it?
yeah.
okay. Does anybody else have questions? No?
You-
Um. I also have to,
You need a second to the motion, sir.
First, you just open up to public comment, but I
okay,
don't think there will be any.
and we'll skip that one since, unless if there's someone online,
No, we're not.
Okay.
Not available to talk on.
so
that.
we'll just, well, there's no public comment, so we're gonna move on to the next one. We're gonna close the public comment. And then, and now there's any request motions or second, but before we second or motion to approve, I also have just one small, motion to change the date. The date on the minutes.
Approve the February 21st?
So the date on the minutes is January 17, but it should be March 20th.
Correct. So for what I'm hearing, you need a motion to accept the minutes with an amended version on the date at the top to change from January 17th to March 20th, and then to accurately reflect what committee member Alm just provided.
Yes.
Can I second the emotion? Is that, we need to do that?
The motion would have to be made by one of the committee members, and then it would have to be seconded by a committee member. Lieutenant Eberly was just prompting with the language, but it has to be from a committee member making the motion to amend the date, correct the date, and to correct the record to reflect committee member Alm's comments.
So any motions to make those two changes?
First, you need a second to the first motion, sir.
The,
You need a second to the first motion.
so this is the first one, yeah.
Yes.
So we, any motions to make that adjustment for member,
I make a second to the
Moment.
motion. I make a second to the motion,
okay,
and I make a motion to amend the minutes as previously stated, and I need a second for that.
I'll second
Well,
that.
and this is for the date,
It was for, yes, for the date, because we.
The second, I'll second a date correction.
You guys are
okay?
not doing this correctly.
Okay, I will conduct a roll call vote. Member Alm,
Approve with amendments.
member DeViti,
Approve.
member Nguyen, Member Ruiz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tokolahi,
Approved.
and Member Locks.
I approve with the motion to amend.
Thank you.
I think we're good. Our next item on our agenda is special. We will have two special presentation tonight. So first one, with Lieutenant Scott, followed by another presentation, but we'll go first with Lieutenant Scott.
And just to clarify for those folks that are following at home, the presentation will be on AB 481, military equipment. And so that information was provided in your package.
Right. Thank you, Vice Chair Tokolahi and PAC committee members and members that are joining online. I'm going to be giving you a presentation on Assembly Bill 481, which outlines and governs military equipment use for law enforcement agencies. I'm first going to be providing an overview of the law and then how it pertains to specifically San Rafael. And then I'm going to go over the annual report that we are required to give to council every year. There we go. And of course, my computer has mind of its own. I apologize. Okay, so Assembly Bill 41 was authored by Assembly Member David Chu to address the funding, acquisition, and use of military equipment. This will increase transparency and oversight for some of the equipment that we use. In March of 2022 and in April of 2023, we hosted community meetings regarding AB 41. You're welcome to access our website at srpd.org under the transparency and see recordings of both of those meetings. And in May 2nd of 2022, San Rafael City Council approved the military equipment policy and the municipal code. In 2023, they did approve the annual report. So this is for 2022. This is going to be the annual report for 2023 that I will go over with you today. So military equipment, what does it mean? The legislation has defined it as 15 specific categories. They are all listed in your packet. I think the best way to explain them is probably just go down the list of 15 and try to put it into terms that anybody can understand. There will definitely be opportunity at the end of the presentation if you have more questions on any of those items. What it does not include is anything designated or controlled by the Federal Defense Logistic Agency. So I did have to look up what that was. They are the agency that reports to the Department of Defense, the military, our actual military armed forces. And what they control is like the food, clothing, repairs. It's not weapons, if that makes sense. Within AB 481, as I mentioned before, it does require us to present an annual report to the city council, and the city council must approve it. In the annual report, we have to have certain highlighted items that we need to give a report out to. One of them is a summary of how the equipment was used, a summary of any complaints that we received in regards to any of the military equipment, the results of any internal audits that we perform, any violations of the military equipment and actions taken in response, costs associated for each type of military equipment, the quantity or each type of military equipment, and any military equipment the law enforcement agency intends to acquire in the next year. I do want to give a brief background. Last year, we requested to cycle out 10 old patrol rifles because they were old and outdated with 10 new ones. We took those old rifles and we destroyed them to make sure that we didn't resell them to another agency, we took them out of circulation. Last year, we also got approval for 2 new sniper rifles. And in that transaction, we took away 6 old sniper rifles. So our inventory actually decreased in the sense of what military equipment we had last year. This year, and I'll go over, we are going to ask for the same 10 new rifles. We have about 80 rifles. We can go over it, but some of them are getting old. So our plan is to yearly cycle 10 new rifles until we get a new equipment inventory. So the categories. Category 1 is any unmanned, remotely piloted, powered aerial or ground vehicle. So that's, in other words, a drone. Category 2 is any mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicle or armored personnel carrier. Category 3, any high-mobility, multi-purpose wheeled vehicles, 2.5-ton trucks, 5-ton trucks, or wheeled vehicles that have breaching or entry apparatus attached. Those are really like the military 6-wheeled tanks you're thinking of, and the big giant trucks that they drive with the huge wheels. Category 4 is any tracked armored vehicles. Those are your tanks. Category 5 is command and control vehicles that are either built or modified to facilitate the operation, control, and direction of a public safety unit. So that's a command center vehicle. A lot of agencies have one of those. Weaponized aircraft, vessels, or vehicles of any kind. That's like a drone that has weapon capabilities. Category 7 are any battering rams, slugs, breaching apparatuses that are explosive in nature. Category 8 are firearms of a 50 caliber or greater. Category 9 is the ammunition for the 50 caliber or greater. Category 10 is specialized firearms and an ammunition of less than 50 caliber. Category 11 is any firearm or firearm accessory that is designated to launch explosive projectiles. Those would be your it could be your less than lethal, like beanbag rounds, rubber rounds. Category 12 is your noise flash diversionary devices. Those are commonly referred to as flashbangs, or explosive breaching tools, munitions containing tear gas, OC, and excluding the standard service handheld pepper spray. So on every police officer's belt, they have the little canister of OC spray. This doesn't count for that. The taser shockwave. So a taser shockwave is, officers, you're probably familiar with the tasers that they use. A taser shockwave is a device that's set up with, I think it's 6 tasers, like on a blanket, basically, that shoots like 6 tasers at one time. Microwave weapons, water cannons, long-range acoustic devices. Category 14 is kinetic energy weapons or munitions. And category 15 is any other equipment determined by governing body or state agency to require additional oversight. This slide shows you what we have. So we only have the items that were listed in category 1, 2, 5, 7, 10, 12, and 14. In the annual report, we are required to report on each one of those items, if we use them, when we use them, and if we acquired more than for them, and how much it costs. I think the biggest question and the biggest item that we have, and this is why we put a picture of it, is our armored personnel carrier. So this is our armored personnel carrier, otherwise known as a SWAT van. but it is used in many different scenarios as a rescue vehicle where officers can get close to a very dangerous, high-risk situation that often involves a suspect with a gun. And so that we can communicate, bring in our crisis negotiators or get in closer to rescue somebody that is in danger, or to bring in the SWAT team closer for an entry that needs cover on approach. There we go. This slide lists the funding source and how long we've had that particular equipment. So our remote controlled robot that came out of the general fund, we've had that since 2010. Our armored rescue vehicle, that's our newest piece of equipment. It is a shared piece of equipment with the Novato Police Department. We have a joined Novato Santa Fe SWAT team. The ARV usually resides with the Novato Police Department. The command trailer, you may have seen that if you've ever been driven by like a DUI checkpoint or a major incident that we carry that out. It is a 30+ foot fifth wheel trailer. Basically, it doesn't have self-driving capabilities. We have to attach it to a truck or a large van. And in it, we can house our dispatch center. There's restrooms in there. There is a room, so to speak, that has dry erase boards that we can come up with plans. The next category is category 7, the breaching round projectile. That would be your 40 millimeter less than lethal round that we have. Then we have, of course, our patrol rifles. Everybody is assigned their own patrol rifle in Santa Fe Police Department, and there's one in every police car. Diversionary devices and tear gas, and we've had that since 1995. And the less than lethal kinetic energy rounds, which would be our beanbag sock rounds that we have. The equipment usage for 2023, as I mentioned before, we don't have anything in categories 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, and 15. And the equipment from category 7, 10, 12 was only used at an approved range or for training purposes. And I did want to mention, for the sake of transparency purposes, the equipment in category 1, which is the drone. Santa Fe Police Department doesn't own any drones, but they are a very valuable tool when we're searching for missing persons or when there's a high-risk situation where we need to get the advantage on where that suspect is. And we did call the Marin County Sheriff's Department, who does have a drone. They have a drone program. They have a drone policy. They have trained drone pilots to come out. That is outlined in the annual report that was in your packet, but briefly I'll summarize. In June, we used a drone. We also used our armored rescue vehicle for the apprehension of a wanted felon. In July of last year, there was a domestic dispute with a firearm involved that we had to call the drone out to get a better angle of approach. In September of last year, we used the drone and the armored rescue vehicle for the arrest of some violent gang members. In October of last year, we used the armored rescue vehicle and the drone for a search and apprehension of a wanted vehicle theft suspect who had just gotten a pursuit with the police officers and was up hiding on the hills, so we thought. And in November of 2023, there was a swatting incident. I did mention in the annual report, a swatting incident is when somebody calls, usually from an untraceable number, and it's, for lack of a better word, a hoax, and they call in a very violent and high-risk situation, and that sounds all the bells and alarms in a police department. So we send everybody that we have to that. This one, I think in particular, was, shots fired. People were injured inside of a house. It turned out to be that the house was vacant. So we were able to use the drone to enter the vacant house and actually clear the entire house without anybody actually ever entering the house safely, and able to confirm that it was a swatting incident. The command trailer in category 5 was not used at all in 2023. And then the armored rescue vehicle in category 2 was mentioned at the aforementioned times above. The less than lethal impact devices, category 4, was used at approved training, as well as in one high risk situation where it was, I outlined it in your report. But just to summarize it again, there was a violent felon who was fleeing from the police department. They had all tented out windows. Commands were given over a certain amount of time. There was no movement. So they were able to take that less than lethal device and break out a window to look into the car and then confirm that there was nobody inside the car. They had escaped before we got there. So last year, the San Rafael Police Department has received no complaints regarding military equipment in 2023, and an internal review revealed no violations regarding any of the equipment that we had. This year, like I mentioned, we are going to be asking council for 10 new rifles. The ones that will be replaced will be destroyed. The cost for 10 new rifles is $10,446.90, and we are asking for no new equipment. And the why? Why do we need this? These items are in the police department to be utilized in high-risk situations. They're meant to create a safe and a peaceful resolution to situations that involve lack of suspect cooperation. We could have a violent incident, which we've had many times, and the suspect is cooperative. We don't need to use this. It's always better to have the piece of equipment and not need it than to need it and not have it. The second main reason why we have this military equipment is to create time and distance. So the patrol rifle, for example, is far more accurate and reliable than our handgun. We did have one incident back in 2001 where there was a gentleman who drove down from Rohnert Park and he was shooting at people on the way down. And he took the Bellum off ramp, and there was an officer that was backed in at the post office right there. He took his rifle and aimed it right at that officer who was writing her report. And if she was 2 inches taller, it would have shot her right in the head, but luckily it went right over her head. She quickly was able to get on the radio for help. An officer that was writing his reports at the Circle K, which less than 2 blocks away, had a rifle. And this was before we had issued the more current and up-to-date patrol rifles that we have now, with specialized sights that we have now. Found that suspect who had barricaded himself behind his vehicle in front of the old Wendy's and started shooting at this officer. The officer had to put the vehicle in reverse. He had to reverse at a safe distance, so that created time and distance of about 100 yards, and was able to neutralize the threat, and was able to prevent that person from causing any more harm to the public. So that's just one example of a time and distance on, God forbid we ever have to need it, but if we didn't have it, the situation would be much more dire. That concludes my presentation on AB 41, and I would like to open up to any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we'll continue on to see if any member of the committee have questions. Salma?
Yeah. Will you be able to hear me through this mask? Can you hear me through the mask? Okay, hi. Excellent report. Thank you. And I noted that I guess you're responsible for writing the report to the council each year because it has your name on it.
I have written it the past 3
Thank-
years.
Thank you.
Yes.
My question has to do with kind of a personal process, is if people turn in guns to our police department, is that recorded somewhere?
Yes, absolutely. So it is every time somebody turns in a firearm or ammunition, we take a formal police report to further, your question, and sometimes we have what's called a gun buyback day.
Yes.
We will record also all of those firearms that we take in. All of those firearms that we take in, they are destroyed. They are destroyed in the manner consistent with alcohol, tobacco, and firearm standards and Department of Justice standards.
So you would have a record of them being given, but then the item would be destroyed, but the records would remain.
So in our police report,
Yeah.
there is an evidence tab, well, so to speak. And in that evidence tab would have all of the information of that firearm as well as the disposition of it. So while it sat in our evidence locker, it would say exactly what locker it's in. When it is time for destruction, so our evidence technician can't destroy it on every time, but when it builds up to a certain
Oh,
amount and or certain times a year, they'll take a whole truckload of, maybe not a truckload,
Well,
but
yeah.
they'll take all the guns that they have to the Department of Justice that they basically melt them all down.
Okay. Right.
And that is recorded in the report, and then it will say destroyed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Any other questions from any other member?
Yo tengo una pregunta. Cuando usted comentó sobre la adquisición desde
I have a question for you. When you commented about the
Ah.
acquisition,
cuando compraron las cosas,
when they bought everything
1997,
since 1997,
95,
1995,
2001,
2001,
¿siguen usando eso?
are you still using the same?
Es
Great question. No, so for that equipment, the diversionary devices and tear gases, they do have a shelf life. When they expire, we will get new equipment. And we don't have any of the patrol rifles that we bought in 2001. That date on the right-hand side is just when the department first started using those pieces of equipment.
Can I ask a question about the internal audit? Like, what does that process look like? And who performs it? Is it somebody outside of the realm of dealing with this department? I don't know what to consider it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question as well. So it is an internal audit. These are weapons. And so we want to make sure that the people that are handling these weapons are trained. So our self-defense and firearms experts that we have a team of them. They will routinely clean the weapons. They'll go through to see if there's any malfunctions. They'll take the inventory. We have an accurate inventory in our pretty extensive, what we call RIMS inventory system. And so they'll compare it to what the equipment is and find out if there's any discrepancies. And if there are, then we'll investigate it. But there has been none this last year.
And just a follow-up, in reference to the policy supporting this, it's policy 700, correct?
This is 706.
706, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to hopefully get PAC inserted into that somewhere where we're part of that transparency process. And I hope we could get written into it in some way.
I do have some other questions. And some of it has been, brought up by some of the members. You mentioned the buyback, when was the last one did you guys have and how often did you guys do that?
They're usually sponsored by the Marin County District Attorney's Office. They're the ones that are able to come up with the funds. The last one that we did, I think, was less than 2 years ago, and it was up at the Sheriff's Department parking lot.
Okay. The patrol rifles, the new ones, those are in the vehicles, like patrolling the city, right?
Correct.
I also want to do follow up on those dates. in the funding. I see that a lot of those stuff that you guys have, that the city have, a general fund, out of the general fund. In those states, I know, like you mentioned, 95, 97. You mentioned the rifles, you mentioned old. Like old considering like how old? Like what's the, like 10 years old? I don't know anything about guns, so
Yeah,
that's why I'm just asking.
no, that's a great question. We do have some rifles that are over 10 years old. And when they start to get old, just like with anything else, some of they're just not as reliable. Their parts are failing. We're having to send them back for repair. It's cheaper just to get new
Get new
guns.
ones.
Yeah.
Okay. A shield, in one of these diversionary devices or anything like that?
Shields are not considered military equipment. So the
Equipment.
SWAT team does have ballistic shields that are handheld shields that
Yeah.
they can use as they are approaching a house, down a hallway, and so forth out in the open. But they're not considered in it of themselves a military piece of equipment.
My last one, like, can you put up the picture of your the vehicle? Like my first expressions on that vehicle is it's like the most friendliest looking vehicle. I mean, like I've seen the same kind of, in other cities which are more, I don't know, to the military standard. And all that, this one just looks like a regular vehicle, friendly, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. We're not out for intimidation. That is not as our purpose. Our purpose is to de-escalate and end the situation safely as possible. So anything that might escalate a situation is not going to be advantageous for us. This is a dual purpose vehicle as well. As I said, we could use it as a rescue vehicle. We could use it as something that we can put in a crisis negotiator and they can talk to the suspect from inside that van and have the ballistic protection. So it's a multi-purpose vehicle for sure.
And this one links to my last questions, because this one is shared through the city of San Rafael and Nevada.
That is correct.
And my last questions, which also link to this, to the sharing, is that category 1 with the drone. The city does not have one, right?
We don't have a drone program, but the drone program would be a great idea to present to the PAC first. Could be an issue or area of concern that you might want to talk about. But no, as of right now, we do not have a drone program. That would be something that we would eventually ask permission from our city council.
Right. I mean, just thinking out loud, I mean, the city might benefit from, from one instead of borrowing from the sheriff department if they're busy with theirs. Like let's say if there's any, something happen all at the same time. The same with the vehicle, and if we only have one, we can't perform. The city can't perform.
Maybe they don't have parking.
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank
So
you. Can I take a quick second to toggle the interpreters right about the half hour?
Yes.
One sec. Thank you, Vice Chair. We're ready to continue.
So if if we don't have any other questions from the member of the committee, it will now be open to any comments from the public on the presentation. There we go.
I saw that there were community meetings about AB 481 in March of 2022 and April 2023. Will there be another community meeting this year? They seem to be around the same time of year the past couple of years. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Scott?
This is going to be the community meeting. So we publicize this meeting and this will be the community meeting. And so that's how we plan on moving forward. And I think that was Member Alm's statement and suggestion moving forward that we hold our community meetings at a PAC meeting.
Okay.
Hold on one second. We're having some problems with translation. Pedro, can you start talking on the Spanish channel? I'm gonna try to toggle back Pablo and see if that's the issue.
So we'll wait for that, right?
Pablo, can you start talking? It's working on my end. Pablo, can you test again on the Spanish channel?
Good.
Yeah. Vin, that was it. I don't know how it got switched off on that computer, but now I know how to fix it. Okay, sorry about that. We have fixed the problem and it should be back up and running on the Spanish channel. We can continue.
Ya, ya, it's ready.
Okay, you good? Bueno. Okay, I think what's next, so I'm just gonna, unless if there's any comments online, then we're just gonna close the public comment. At this point, to respond to questions from the community. I think we did that. Lieutenant Scott answered the questions. Comments from any committee members? Any comments? Whether on the general presentation or the questions from the public? No? And then we good?
I think the easiest way just to make sure everybody has an opportunity, Vice Chair, is just go down the list and call on each one and then they can say they have a comment or not.
Okay.
Then it takes longer.
We'll do it. We'll do it. It's all, learning curves for us. So I'm gonna start on the top by Member Alm.
I have no further comments. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was well done.
Thank you. Member Davidi,
Thanks for the presentation. No comment.
Member Nguyen. Nguyen. So make sure you. there you go.
No, but can I have a question? I'm just wondering that the police will equip like the cameras in the bodies, cameras, just a rifle.
Bring it mic to your mouth.
Oh, I just wonder if the police officer equipped with the camera in the body, so every time they encounter with the violent or something, will camera showing? It doesn't say in here, the list, so.
Great question, Member Nguyen. Yes, we do have a whole other policy on body worn cameras. And it is our policy that anytime an officer is going to be going into a situation that may become adversarial or confrontational, whether they know it or not, they are to turn it on if there's even a chance that that incident may become adversarial or confrontational. Yes.
Does it answer your questions? Thank you. Member Ruiz.
A mí me gustaría secundar lo que dijo el compañero Tocolaje.
I would like to say the same as
¿Por qué no
member
tener su
Cotolaji.
propio vehículo ustedes y los
Wha-
drones
why-
aquí en San
wh-
Rafael?
Why
Gracias.
don't you guys have your own vehicles and also the drones? Thank you.
We don't have our own vehicle because it is very expensive. And some of that money came from a grant, so we were able to split that with another neighboring agency. We are working through the process to obtain drones. That is a goal of the police department, to obtain some permission and to use some drones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any comments about from saying thank you for the presentation. I think there's a lot to take in. There's also a lot for us to learn about all these military equipments and, what you guys have, what the city have and doesn't have. Also some priority, for us to look at as a committee and maybe work with the city or whatever we can do to protect our city, basically. And also the, public services, folks who are carrying out these, the jobs, make sure that, like any other job, we wanted to have the equipment or the resources, to make sure that we perform to protect the city. Member Locks?
No comments.
Thank you. So I'm gonna close this presentation. Thank you, Lieutenant Scott. We're gonna move on to our next agenda items, which is going to be another presentation from the San Rafael Police Department Law Enforcement Training. So I wanted to invite Sergeant Rob Cleland to give the next presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. As you said already, I'm Rob Cleland, a sergeant with the San Rafael Police Department, and I've been with the department going on 19 years. Tonight, I will talk about an overview of the training that officers and professional staff of the San Rafael Police Department receive. I will cover peace officer standards and training, also known as POST, mandated training, specialized and advanced training, leadership training, and internal training. The San Rafael Police Department operates under the guidance of POST. The Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training was established in 1959. POST not only regulates the hiring requirements to become a police officer or a police department employee, but they also set the training standards for each job classification. POST sets the standard of continuing professional training at 24 hours in every 2-year cycle. The San Rafael Police Department consistently exceeds that standard on an annual basis. The San Rafael Police Department not only adheres to these guidelines set by POST, but also surpasses them by sending our employees to several additional training courses. Training that is mandated by POST in that 2-year cycle cover the following essential areas: use of force, firearms, de-escalation, emergency driving, crisis intervention techniques, cultural awareness, and crisis communication. To give a couple of examples of those training topics, I will speak about use of force and de-escalation. Use of force is always evolving and being updated by newly passed legislation and policy updates. We as a department try to ensure that our officers are provided with training with the latest up-to-date information regarding case law and policy. We require this by sending out policy updates that employees are required to sign off. We cover policy updates in team briefings. We cover law updates during biannual firearms training, updates in use of force during our annual arrest and control training. And we send our instructors to update classes to make sure our instructors are teaching the up-to-date information. We strive to train all of our officers in de-escalation. We incorporate de-escalation into every use of force training, including our time on the shooting range, and while covering arrest and control. Every officer attends a crisis intervention training, which I'll speak to a little later. Our officers work closely with the SAFE team, mobile crisis, and we currently have several members that are trained in crisis negotiations as part of our crisis response unit. Those employees with specialized training are available to use their additional de-escalation skills on a daily basis. Here at the San Rafael Police Department, we put a strong emphasis on enhancing specialized proficiencies by sending our employees to several specialized training courses. At the San Rafael Police Department, you do not have to be a sworn officer to be part of our specialties, including crisis negotiations or crime scene investigations, also known as CSI. Several of these specialized classes span 24, 40, and sometimes even 80 hours per class. These classes are approved and endorsed by Post and are taught by experts in the chosen field. Some examples of these classes are crisis response team, crisis intervention training, sexual assault investigations, homicide investigations, drug recognition evaluators, advanced accident investigations, child forensic interviewing, crime scene investigations, farms, and use of force instruction. We currently have over 100 vendors that provide us training. The majority of those classes are post-certified, taught by instructors that are active law enforcement, retired law enforcement, or general experts in the field. And to elaborate on a couple of the above topics, I will talk about crisis intervention training and drug recognition evaluators. The post mandate for crisis intervention training is that field training officers only, which are the officers that train new officers, are required to attend an 8-hour training in crisis intervention training. But here at the San Rafael Police Department, we send every officer, some professional staff to crisis intervention training before they are off probation, which is 18 months. This class is a 32-hour class where you learn about several mental health disorders, how these conditions may affect their interaction with law enforcement. We learn how to speak to and deal with people suffering from mental illness. This is a standard that the San Rafael Police Department has maintained since 2003. Drug recognition evaluators attend an 80-hour course to learn about how drugs or substances have an effect on the body. This class teaches you signs and symptoms of each drug category. Officers are taught how to test for impairment through field sobriety testing and additional testing. This gives officers specialized training on identifying impaired drivers and subjects we come into contact with that are under the influence of substances. These experts can decipher if subjects have used one or more substances or illicit drugs. They can rule out if the subject's merely suffering a medical condition or possibly suffering from a mental health episode and not under the influence. These experts are commonly brought in for serious accident investigations where illicit drugs may be a factor, or serious violent crimes where drugs may or may not be a factor. The San Rafael Police Department also prioritizes ongoing education and skill development for our officers and professional staff. Equal emphasis is placed on leadership cultivation, succession planning, and cultural awareness. The San Rafael Police Department is committed to fostering avenues for promotion, leadership advancement, and personal development for our staff. Several of our officers and professional staff members have 4-year college degrees and above, including master's and one with a law degree. If they do not possess a degree, they are encouraged to obtain a degree with educational incentives and tuition reimbursement through the city. Our leadership team and several employees are encouraged and sponsored to attend classes and programs to assist them with leadership, promotion, and cultural awareness. Below are a few of the programs and classes that have and will be attended. The Sherman Block Leadership Institute, also known as SLI, supervisory courses, SWAT supervisor courses, crisis negotiation supervisor, tools for tolerance for law enforcement, management courses, implicit bias and community policing, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The SLI course is a leadership course that sergeants attend. This course is on adaptive leadership and takes place over 8 months. Sergeants attend 1 full weekend a month for 8 months. They attend this course with other supervisors from all over the state. This course improves networking and is an effective tool for our sergeants to become better leaders and communicators. Tools for Tolerance for Law Enforcement was a course that every full-time employee at the police department attended. This course took place at the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. This program was designed to confront contemporary issues within the law enforcement community and to assist law enforcement in their continuing effort to enhance skills in delivering a more effective level of service to our community. I'll move on to internal training. We at the police department also provide our own internal training on self-defense, arrested control, less lethal force options, and firearms. We have an instructor staff of 11 officers that have attended several post-certified instructor courses where in turn they are able to teach our officers and sometimes outside agencies in those topics. We submit our own curriculum to POST that is approved by POST prior to instructing those courses. All of the courses include policy review, proper procedure, de-escalation, and case law. Other ways we achieve internal training is by requiring our employees to complete daily training bulletins, also known as DTBs, that come directly from our policy manual through scenario training. Additionally, we recently subscribed to the Briefing Room, which is a training platform that covers up-to-date case law on search and seizure, use of force, and better police practices. This is covered on a weekly basis in each team's morning or evening briefing. This is interactive scenario-based training and participation to mandatory in briefing to make sure our officers are up to date on case law. Lastly, our leadership team meets once a month, and we oftentimes receive outside training on topics like procedural justice or emotional intelligence. Those training topics are then worked into our daily leadership style and passed on to our officers and professional staff. Again, this is a broader review of the training we receive at the San Rafael Police Department. I appreciate your time and thank you. If there's any questions, Lieutenant Eberly will try to answer those.
Thank you, Sergeant. At this time, I'm going to go down the list with the committee members. If you have any questions regarding the presentation, Member Al?
I want to touch on continuing higher education for our members who have not completed a degree. I'm sure we've identified them. Outside of the tuition reimbursement incentive, like, is there a mentor to help push them? I would like to see a department that's well educated. I think that's really important to the training aspect.
Yeah, Lieutenant Eberly might be able to speak a little higher than me, but we have a very educated department. We have several officers, more than normal, I think, that have 4-year degrees, master's degrees. Like I said, one with a law degree. But in the police department, if you have a degree and a certain amount of time on, you have certificate pay. So that's an incentive for them to get a degree. They can basically get a raise quicker, I guess. But from what I know, we're a very well-educated department based on, I believe you still only need a GED to be a police officer. So I think that's still the requirement, right? Or is it?
From POST, but we recommend, so in the hiring processes, we want a minimum of 30 college credits. But with the competition out there, and the educated population, we are very fortunate to gather a good pool of candidates that have 4-year degrees.
Am I safe to assume that every officer at the minimum has an AA currently?
If not an AA, probably the college credit equivalent. Just about, I don't know for sure, but it's well more than 90%.
I believe it's the exception now, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Member Davidi?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Sergeant, for your report. I have 2 questions. My first question is in regards with cultural awareness training. Can you elaborate more on that as far as how many hours, what sort of training the officers get, please?
So we did attend the Tolerance Museum in Los Angeles, and that was a 1-day training. It was 8 hours. But every year we do a cultural bias training, which it's 2 hours, I believe, every year.
So incorporated, if I may just interject, incorporated with most of our trainings, is an aspect to cultural awareness. So we also have a leadership team that is made up of sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and the chief. And we routinely bring in guest speakers. We recently had one on procedural justice. We had one on emotional intelligence. We are currently, as a city of San Rafael, giving diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging training. That's going to be a minimum of 4-hour training. Those other trainings are 2 to 4 hours. So this is all just this last year. Just gives you an idea of the amount of training that we have. When trainings are given to just the leadership meeting or the leadership team, excuse me, that leadership team is in charge of their subordinates to pass on that training. We do run into the unfortunate time and how many people we can train. So we feel like if we can do more of the train the trainers, and then we can use that internal training. So we do a lot of that.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for mentioning the Museum of Tolerance. I've been there myself, and I know with the rise in anti-Semitism, it's such a huge asset to know more. But also more curious in specific with Canal or with the Latin demographic, is there any special training, how to approach or how to be more aware of like those cultural issues or anything? Is there any specialty around that?
So I don't know if there's especially training, but we do a lot of just community oriented policing, being out there, coffee with the cop, things like that, and going to talk to the community down there. But I don't know if there's specific training just for the Canal of what they expect. If that makes sense.
Maybe not specific to the Canal, but at Tools for Tolerance, there was also Hispanic and different cultures that were trained upon, as well as the bias-based training, all different ethnicities. There's not one particular class that we go to that focuses on one ethnicity. They touch on all of the ethnicities and try to be inclusive in that sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant.
One last thing, because I think it's pertinent, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging training that the city is putting on is specific actually to the Canal. I think Sergeant Cleland is slated to go next. That's why he probably didn't know, but I have gone, and it is specific to the Canal. It talks about the history of the Canal. And it was a really good training that is going to be brought to the rest of the department and has been brought to, I think, most of the city.
Yes, so the city has so all employees, and I, as a relatively recent hire, I just went through the training as well. And so basically it's to ground all city staff in a baseline history of San Rafael, looking at things such as redlining, different actions that the city may have taken in the past that caused disparate treatment or outcomes, as well as the employees themselves engaging in a dialogue about their own bias and their own perceptions, and also conversations about their identities as well. And so to the extent that the community is diverse, we have a diverse staff as well. And so just wanted to have some common ground and conversation again around the community history, as well as what staff brings to the table in terms of our own individual identities and experiences.
I just had a leading question. First of all, thank you for the city for doing that. It's such a huge value. Are we as committee members allowed to be present at these trainings or watch them, or is that something open?
If I may, we haven't invited our committee members to participate in the trainings, but something that we can certainly think about or look into. As part of our DEIB work, we have lunch and learns. And so we've had a lunch and learn recently we had one on anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. We had one on African-American history within Marin, focusing on, in particular around Marin City, but also that history in San Rafael. We've also had a training, not a training per se, but just kind of a lunch and learn kind of structure around homelessness and the unhoused in the community and what the demographics are. And so those really have been staff intensive, just to kind of have open dialogue and sharing. But we could certainly see if there might be appropriate to invite the broader community to participate in those conversations. I will say that when the city has a number of events around United Against Hate Week that are kind of similarly focused, the library hosts a number of events, but these most recent lunch and learns are intended to kind of supplement the baseline training that all staff get. But I can certainly follow up and see if some of these things we may want to open up more broadly, if there's either to the community or to committee members to reflect on as well, because obviously their decisions have a huge impact on the community, and it might be helpful for them to see and learn as well. So that's something I can certainly follow up on.
Okay, thank you. I would appreciate getting a follow-up on that. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. We're gonna go down the list. Member Nguyen,
No comment.
comment? Member Ruiz.
Muchas gracias por la presentación. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for the
Cuando
presentation.
ustedes estaban hablando de entrenamiento cultural,
When you guys are talking about cultural training,
también en los entrenamientos está nuestra cultura como latinos, como somos.
also on
Personas
the
de
training,
Guatemala y de muchos países del canal.
or Latin culture is included in this program, all the Latin communities for this program.
Yep. So we haven't had that training yet. I think it's either going to be in, I can't remember if it's going to be in April or May to coincide with Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. And so we're looking to assemble speakers around that. So there's also going to be a lunch and learn to coincide. We're really planning them. We want to get to every culture, but usually we're planning them around month-long recognition. So for example, for Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we're going to do a training and also to line up with Hispanic Heritage. So yes, there will be a training that will focus on the Latino community with a local focus as well. Again, we speak about these communities broadly, but we also try to ground it in information about the specific demographics within San Rafael. So there will be that training.
Mi segunda pregunta, entonces, cuando los oficiales están en entrenamiento, quiere decir que quedan menos para atender a la ciudad, ¿verdad?
My second question is, when the officials are in training, so we have less officials to take care of the city?
These trainings are provided during lunch. So this is when people would normally be out and about. So and they're on site. They're actually held in council chambers. And so if someone is unable to leave their desk because they're either in a remote location, but they still want to participate, we have these trainings on Zoom as well. So they are here in council chambers and they're offered by Zoom as well. And again, they're offered during what for many employees would be their lunch break. So they would be out anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. These trainings, when you guys use speakers,
Don't I get a turn before you?
so
Do I get a turn before you? No?
after me,
Oh, okay.
I got you.
Mhm.
Do you guys use like local expertise, like expert folks? I'm selfish in a way to just keep everything in the city. We have folks in all these fields. I think they can do a tremendous good job in training local, our force, they're local, they know the language, they know how we do stuff here, they patrol our city by shopping, walk around, like eat out, go to local churches, attend local community events and stuff. Do you guys tap into that, like using local folks?
Excellent question. One, I want to say, and my partner might have something to add, but this is what's great about, I think, the PAC and you coming with resources to help out and advise and recommend to the police department. So on a side note, I'd love to connect later and you can provide me with some local trainers that we might not use and we might be missing. I'd love for you to send us some recommendations. For the majority of the technical skills,
Right.
the homicide classes, those are local detectives in the sense that they're usually all from the Bay Area. And they all have gone through them themselves, extensive training to even get to the status of a trainer. You have to go through obviously more training. So all the technical use of force, firearms, technical things, if you're talking more about the cultural diversity and the bias-based
yeah.
policing and the procedural justice, we would love to use more, but I'll turn it over.
Yeah, so I would definitely co-sign that. For what we do is we certainly look first to local resources. We have a person that we use citywide for our diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging training and support. Liz Darby, who is a San Rafael resident, who has connections in many different communities. And so so she is the person that coordinates. And when there is an organization that's local, we certainly tap into that, or just within the Bay Area. So for example, if I'm talking about the training on anti-Semitism, for example, the trainer was recommended by folks within the city, folks that are within San Rafael, as giving a good training. So they are maybe not necessarily local to San Rafael, but they're within the Bay Area. And we certainly, poll city staff and city leadership and community members to see if there's someone that they know who would bring the presentation forward to staff.
Thank you. I think my last question's the SAFE team. I think we all know that we have a unhoused homeless issue in our city. And I've seen these guys. I know it's a pilot. Correct me if I'm wrong. The SAFE team, my understanding it's a pilot. I've worked with them, they're tremendous, good, they're really good at what they do. But I don't think a lot of the folks in the community understand what they do and who they are. Can you, just for the sake of the public, can you elaborate more on the SAFE team?
Vice Chair Tokalahi, that is an excellent question, and it was almost set up perfectly. Next month, they will be given a presentation
Oh, sweet.
here to the PAC. Second, to further elaborate to your point, because I do agree with you, we are getting better at getting them out there into the public to explain. So now they are invited to all of our Coffee with the Cops. They are invited to a lot of the community engagement. We have a community engagement event actually next Tuesday down in the canal at the food pantry. They will be there as well. So that's just one example of how we are going to try to combat that concern that you have, because I think it's a very relevant concern that the public should and be able to understand more. So we'll be working on it, and they'll definitely be here next month.
Oh, then we'll wait for next month then. That's perfect. Thank you.
Happy.
Yeah. That's all from me. Member Locks? It's your turn.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. My questions are, the list that was given to us is 143 courses that are listed, and they're not organized according to, like, senior staff gets this particular set of courses, and maybe some of it's from maybe when they first joined the force and so forth. I think 143 courses is a lot to take in a 2-year period if you're rotating. So these must be segregated in a little different way than our list of 143. Can you clarify that a little bit?
So I believe the list is all the training that the entire department has attended. So it doesn't mean every single person has attended that training.
Okay.
It's somebody in the police department has attended this training. So training is spread out based on what you do at the police department.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then to clarify what member Alvarez
Ruiz.
is, Ruiz, I'm sorry. What member Ruiz asked to differentiate, not all of the lunch, what did we call them? Lunch and learn sessions are specific to the police officers. They may come to them, but they're not specific to them. I wanted to just separate that a little bit from, so it's staff that's really getting a lot of this education that you're referring to. Is that correct?
So the trainings, the lunch and learn sessions are open to all city staff. We usually count how many people attend, but we don't count by department, but
okay.
we do have broad representation from the departments. We have a number of folks that participate online. And so again,
Yeah.
we don't have
Right.
formal sign-ins because these are not mandatory trainings.
Yeah.
These are just opportunities for people to learn and to share and to ask questions. But we do have them plan to have trainings every month on sorry, I shouldn't refer to it as a training. These opportunities at least once a month.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify the differentiation between police officers training, because that's really, what our focus
That's
is.
different. And,
Yes.
and the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, that baseline training is a mandatory training for all city staff. And so that we do keep record of. But the lunch and learns, because they're optional, we do not keep, we just do a count of how many people attended. And as a kind of a way to see, and we also, just to see how many people attended and just to kind of inform our planning for future events.
Good, yes, okay. And then let's see, was it one other question? Oh, my other question was, and I think it did come up, was I'm interested in an opportunity to attend one of the trainings. I think specifically how the training goes for crisis intervention or de-escalating de-escalation of a situation, because those are kind of the areas in which generated a lot of interest in the development of this committee. And I wanted to know if you actually have courses on critical thinking. I didn't read every single one of these, but specifically critical thinking. Do police officers know what that is?
I can
Oh,
answer.
okay.
So noted for your first request. We'll look into that to see
Yeah.
how, if that's possible. And if it is, we'll make that possible for sure. And the leadership classes, all the leadership classes. So Sergeant Cleveland talked about SLI, the Sherman Block Leadership Institute. Yes, it is. They study, help me out here, Rob. I can't think of
You
the
lost the word.
allegory of the cave philosophy. They talk about endurance by Shackelford. They are talking about some real deep critical thinking skills on how they can become themselves better police officers and leaders, and how they can lead. So all of the leadership classes have critical thinking aspects to them.
So my follow-up question would be, how is that training by the leadership dispersed to, demonstrated by, shared with the routine staff?
So they're expected to come back and either train their subordinates or act in a way that they were taught. So if they're taught in a certain way to be a leader through critical thinking skills, it's displayed through leadership. And then that is, imparted by the subordinates and the future leaders. And then hopefully that sparks inspiration for the younger generation to also ascertain higher levels in the department.
Critical thinking, I feel, is not just a leadership opportunity. That if you practice it, and not in addition to teaching it, you may not be reaching the junior officers, for lack of another word, or the recruits, I don't know what you call them, in ways that you think you might. Because you can act a certain way, but are the leadership, I guess I'm gonna say, is the leadership maybe the supervisor in the field, how the supervisor in the field is instructing or advising how to approach situations. So maybe that's the area I'm really, I guess, asking about.
Good point. And I'm sorry, I kind of missed that mark there. But yes, critical thinking is taught extensively in use of force training and de-escalation training on how to interpret what the threat is, what level of threat that I have to use to overcome that threat, to make sure who's going to be safe. So critical thinking is taught in just about every aspect of policing, starting at the police academy.
Thank you. So-
Can we take a quick 2 seconds to toggle the interpreters?
Sure.
Maybe a stand-up break. Stand-up break.
Pedro, can you test? Perfect. We're good to go when you are.
Thank you. At this time, any public comments, anything online? Sorry, I'll keep coming back to online because I wanted to make sure that, if people are watching from home, if they're watching and they can send questions. No? I think we answer all the questions. Any comments, discussions from committee members, Member Alm?
I have no further. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Member Davidi?
No question, just a reminder, if, just keep me posted on the cultural awareness training and also that anti-Semitism. That's also, I'd like to get to know more about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Nguyen?
Well, I just, like he just says, we communicate, communities, Vietnamese communities, they need to know that too. So I just wonder if the training will like publicly, in most like the community centers like Pickwick Park or school. So the people, in every community difference, they can know about the training and then they can attend it. So I just wonder if they will post everywhere in the public so the many on every people in the Marine or in San Rafael will know.
Do you mean like communities are represented?
Yeah.
And that was a question to us. Was that just a comment? You want us to post when we have like a lunch and learn and see if we can get community members? Yeah. I think
Yes.
Yeah, it was a
we
question.
could post that also down in the Pickleweed if we can get approval for community to attend. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Ruiz?
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any comments. Thank you. Member Locks?
No comments I've presented.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close off the presentation with Sergeant Cleland. Did I get it right? Thank you. Thank you for your time in the presentation. We're going to move on to our next agenda, which is the 2024 Police Advisory Accountability Committee schedule. And this was sent to all of you guys for our next month meetings. Okay, so there were 3 dates that were sent to us. So May 8th, 15th, and 22nd. The May 15, it's the annual State of the City. So we have the other 2 option, which is May 8th and 22nd.
And if I
Okay.
may to the
Yeah.
chair, there's also the option to meet earlier on the 15th as well. So those are the 3 dates, May 8th at 6.
Oh, so the annual State of the City is at 4.
No, it is actually, I believe it starts at 6.
Oh, 6.
So we gave the option to start earlier
4.
at 4.
Okay,
Or you can meet on May 8th at 6 PM or May 22nd at 6 PM. And so we just want to know your preference, and you'll make a motion and approve a revised meeting schedule, and we'll post that on the city website.
okay. We. I'm gonna go down the list again, so we can discuss the dates for next month, okay? Member Alm?
I'm not in favor of the 15th at 4 PM. If I have a preference, would be the 22nd.
Second.
You're gonna do a tally?
Yeah, I'm telling it. Thank you, Member Davidi.
I can do all those days, but I think my preference is also the 22nd. But I can do all of them.
Okay. Member Nguyen?
I can do in 3 days, but I prefer like 4 o'clock, like she suggests. Is that we can move the meeting up to like 4 o'clock?
Yes, this room is available at 4, or the other 2 dates, May 8th at 6 or May 22nd at 6.
Yes, I am available in 3 days. I
Oh.
can attend at 4 o'clock on 8, 15 and 22, either one, right?
Yes, all
Yeah.
of those are available.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, apologies. All of those dates and times are available. We confirmed that the council chambers are available on all 3 dates. So it's just to know what your preference is, or if you have no preference, or if you're available for all 3.
Yeah, I'm available for all 3.
So let me just clarify. You're available for all 3, but do you have one that you prefer?
Probably is 22.
The 22nd.
Yeah, 22.
Okay. Thank you. Member Ruiz?
22nd, 6 PM.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm gonna go with the 22nd too. Member Locks?
I'm available for all 3, but if the group is going with the 22nd, I will say the 22nd. It looks like the 22nd is getting most votes.
I
So-
think so. I
okay.
think the majority's May 22nd.
Okay.
And so this, because you adopted this, had a motion and a vote, someone would need to make a motion
Yeah,
to,
Right.
to change the meeting, and then have a second, and
Yeah.
you would have a roll call vote.
I make a motion to move our next meeting to March 22nd at 6 PM. May 22nd at 6 PM.
Motion to move the meeting in second,
this,
the May 22nd.
May 22nd.
What you say, 6 o'clock?
That's what it says, 6
Yeah.
o'clock. Are you looking?
Yeah, she,
No, she said.
second,
I second.
okay. So I'm gonna go down the list. Member Alm?
Approve.
I'll call the roll.
Oh.
I jumped the gun, huh?
Yeah, taking my job.
My bad.
Member Alm,
Approve.
Member Davidi,
Approve.
Member Nguyen,
Approve.
Member Ruiz,
Yes.
Member Tokalahi, Vice Chair Tokalahi,
Approved.
and Member Locks.
Approve.
Thank you.
Approve.
I just want to note for the record that there weren't any members of the community present, so why there was no public comment called, just to clarify that for the record. Apologies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our next item, any staff liaison report?
I have no reports at this time.
We're moving along. Committee reports. Good.
I'll start. I
Bob's.
do have one. I'm continuing my community conversations with anyone who'll want to speak with me. Searching out leaders. And my last conversation was with the Point St. Pedro Road Coalition co-presidents, Bonnie Marmore and Denise Lucy. We had a great chat about some of their issues. They agreed to continue bringing that conversation forward with further members of their boards and other neighborhood associations. And I look forward to continuing it with them in the future.
Thank you. Member Davidi?
Just a request, I attended one of these oral hearings for interview last month, I think it was. If there's another one coming up, it was a great experience just to be part of it. So if it's available, I would like to attend in the future.
Thank you. Member Nguyen?
I don't have any reports. Sorry.
Thank you. Member Ruiz?
Yes, I have a lot. I was busy, sorry. I was meeting with Voces del Canal. Es important. Sorry, en Spanish. Tuve una reunión con Voces del Canal. Es un grupo muy importante de nuestra comunidad el 27 de marzo. También conocí a Marta Villela. Ella quería conocerme y cuál es mi papel aquí en el comité, en lo cual ella me invitó para una reunión anoche con MOC sobre la vivienda. 25 de abril, perdón, me confundí. También fui voluntaria para un servicio especial para una compañera muy querida, Olivia Beltrán. Abril 13, me tocó recibir a las personas en la puerta. Y este lunes que pasó, tuve una reunión aquí para apoyar a la comunidad, para las personas que se quedan sin vivienda. Gracias.
Yes, so I had a lot to report. Sorry, I was a bit distracted here. But I attended a meeting for the Voices of Canal on March 27th, which is a very important group here in our community. I also had the opportunity to meet one of our community members, Marta Villela, who wanted to meet me. And she wanted to know what my role in this committee was and to also invite me to one of their meetings with MOC in regards to housing. And on the 25th, I was a volunteer for a very special service for Miss Olivia Beltran. I was the greeter at the door. And then this past Monday, I actually had a meeting here in Chamber to help support some of the community members who are dealing with the issue around housing and unhoused. Thank you.
Thank
He
you.
confused. For Olivia Beltran was April 13.
April 13, right?
Yeah, last Saturday.
Okay. I don't have anything to report.
Well,
Yeah. Member Locks?
I don't have anything to report that's pertinent for this group and wonderful committee members. But I would like to request the email and phone numbers of my committee members so that I can get to know them better.
Okay. I'm sure Lieutenant Scott will work with that.
You guys can either exchange numbers and emails after this meeting, or if
Yeah, we
I
can
would
reach
probably rather do that so that you guys are sharing your own personal information that you want to share and it's not coming from me. So I would suggest that you meet outside of the meeting and exchange information who you feel comfortable sharing your information with.
We'll do that. We'll work with that. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's time for, for the open discussions, comments from the public, but we don't have anyone, so I'm gonna move on to close the public comment. And I think we're good for tonight. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Oh, my gosh, look at the time, folks.
That time is.
So the next one.
Is that clock now?